I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're listening to Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs, and the sins of the underworld. We're Ireland's top podcast for 2025, and now we've got a new website. So if you want to learn more about crime and criminals, if you want stories, extras, and podcast subscriber specials, go to www.crimeworld.com.
Conor McGregor has been at the centre of many legal cases really over the last year, but we had definitive conclusions to two of them this week. One of them which might make Conor McGregor happy, another one which clearly won't be the result he was looking for. The Supreme Court, the Irish Supreme Court this week, decided not to allow McGregor to continue a further appeal to that court. Tell us what they said, basically.
Yeah, so basically Conor McGregor and James Lawrence was, as people know, his co-accused in the civil case. Sorry, he was also sued by Nikita Hand. Now, the jury found that he hadn't assaulted Nikita Hand, but he was not awarded his costs because basically the judge said that the jury didn't believe his story because he was backing up McGregor with the story. So he took the case to the Supreme Court about him winning his case but not being afforded his costs. And then McGregor took his case to the Supreme Court on the point of his appeal, which was that basically the jury was allowed here that during the Garda investigation before the civil case, that the jury were allowed here that he answered no comment to the Gardaí 150 times. So
a case, Conor McGregor, obviously the case was heard in the High Court. Then he went to the Court of Appeal. And he lost that. And then he sought to take a case to the Supreme Court. Now, you can't just take a case to the Supreme Court. If you have, no matter how much money you have or resources, you can't decide that it will be heard. Now, you almost automatically have a right to appeal the initial verdict. But the Supreme Court only looks at cases that have issues of public importance, issues to do with the law that are of public importance. Yeah. So they're going to, even if somebody believes they're not guilty, it doesn't effectively matter to the Supreme Court. They're only looking to test the issues of law, I suppose. Yeah. And you can get a case to the Supreme Court if you say, well, this is a particular issue of law that needs to be clarified. Yeah. Now, as you said, Nikita Hand initially reported that she had been raped to the Gardaí. The Gardaí then spoke to Conor McGregor under caution, and it was videotaped. And during the course of the case, the civil case, the guards ultimately decided not to bring a criminal case.
Well, the DPP decided.
The DPP decided not to bring a criminal case. Now, in the course of the civil case taken by Nikita Hand, where she sued him as a private individual, Conor McGregor said he had been fully cooperative with Gardaí in their investigation. Yeah. And because he said that, then the trial judge said, well, then the videotapes of him being interviewed by Gardaí can be admitted. And they showed him being asked a series of questions, and he said no comment to it. Was it 150 times?
150 times, yeah.
And he said ultimately this prejudiced the jury.
Yeah, because he was basically, as you said, when you take it to the Supreme Court, the panel, so it was a 3-judge panel who made this ruling, and they decided that that these matters didn't breach matters of general public importance. So what he was trying to raise with the Supreme Court challenge, because it was the only avenue of challenge open to him, was that it was basically, you are entitled to the right to silence as a suspect in a case. Yep. And that by showing this to this civil jury that he said 150 times no comment, is that kind of infringing on your right to silence, because it's kind of suggesting, that you basically, it's basically suggesting that you weren't cooperating, I suppose. Yeah.
Now, he did, obviously the judge had said, well, you've opened up this by coming out and saying you were cooperative with the Gardaí. But ultimately the Supreme Court said, well, look, this is, it's not a matter of general public importance, that it is that, that Conor McGregor has had a chance to appeal, and that no comment bit, it doesn't go to the facts of the case, I think they said, or something along those lines.
Yeah, so, it's not enough, I suppose, to challenge it's not enough to kind of raise a matter of, is this something that needs to be considered for, I suppose, other cases?
Yeah, they said it hypothetically may arise, is what they said.
Yeah.
And I suppose it could arise in another case.
Yeah.
But that in this case, it doesn't go solely to the facts of the case, and the jury had a lot of other information effectively put before them, and they still made a decision. So they also spoke about how Conor McGregor had a previous chance to appeal, obviously speaking about the initial appeal.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose this initial appeal was rejected by the Court of Appeal, obviously, as it's called. And essentially the only point that they ran the appeal on was this issue with the judge allowing the 150 no comments before the jury. But they did try and bring in other evidence, which is basically, it was described when it was initially introduced as bombshell new evidence, and it was essentially to Samantha Riley and Stephen Cummins alleged that were living across the street from Nikita Hand and her former partner on the night that Nikita Hand said she was raped by Conor McGregor. And when she returned home, the woman claimed that she could see from an upstairs bedroom that Nikita Hand was being assaulted by her partner, which was completely denied as utter lies by Nikita Hand. This was evidence that they were trying to put as part of the appeal. And on the day that the appeal was to be heard, it was withdrawn by McGregor's lawyers. And then they had to rely on this issue with the judges allowing the no comments to the jury.
And they had a few other issues at that point.
Yeah.
But the one that's been placed before the Supreme Court obviously is primarily the no comment. So that's Conor McGregor's avenues for appeal in Ireland come to an end.
Yes.
Sometimes some cases somehow end up in Europe, but, so maybe there is some sort of possibility, but realistically it is at an end now. And whatever legal bills have been racked up, and no doubt they've been extremely extensive in total, that can now be settled between the legal teams, and Nikita Hand will have to be paid the money, which I think was 250,000 initially.
It was 250,000 that she was granted, and then obviously I think the legal costs are like 1.3 million.
Yeah, I mean that's an estimate now because obviously that's a private matter, but I think people can work out roughly or quite clearly what it would amount to.
Well, Shane Phelan, who's the legal expert in the Irish Independent, is reporting that the costs he has to pay Miss Hand's costs, which are at least 1.3 million.
Yeah. So huge amount of money.
Yeah.
So that was a bad result for McGregor. I suppose he had a sort of a better result in the US in a totally separate case.
Yeah, so Conor McGregor had been accused again. It was a civil case. I think there was initial police report and it wasn't continued with.
Yeah.
So this Jane Doe, as described, she had anonymity. Sorry, I struggle with that word. But she was basically suing McGregor for damages, saying that he orally and anally raped her in a bathroom. Of a centre where a basketball match was taking place, and that he slammed her head against the wall. McGregor had always strenuously denied these claims, and this week basically it was filed that the case was going to be dropped with prejudice, which means that she can never bring this case again. So
we don't know what's gone on in the background. She filed for a notice of dismissal with prejudice, and that allows, you said, that means that under no circumstances again can she resurrect it. It doesn't, there's a number of possibilities about why she would file that. They're not going to be made public.
No.
We don't know any of those reasons. It could be that some agreement has been reached with the law between the legal teams and ultimately between their clients.
Yeah.
And that therefore she files this notice, or it could be for another reason.
Yeah.
But we don't know, simply.
No, we don't know. And I think Patrick O'Connell had reported that the judge has basically filed more documentation to say this case is closed.
Yeah.
And we don't know exactly why, but Pat had tried to reach the woman's lawyer for comment and didn't get any. So obviously there's, they're keeping that.
Yeah, there may be some confidentiality aspects to any agreement that can happen between lawyers.
Yeah, and McGregor, like it's usual for McGregor to comment on these things publicly, and he hasn't. So maybe there was an agreement.
Yeah,
to say nothing, but we don't know that. Obviously, we're just speculating.
Well, there are some other cases involving Conor McGregor still to come. Some of them to do with the whiskey business. There's obviously a claim from a former pal who's saying he owns some of Conor McGregor's drinks business. And many other things in the future. No doubt we will be coming back to Conor McGregor. There's nothing is surer than that.
Yeah, well, and like despite all the legal stories around him this week, he still seemed to enjoy himself with Mike Tyson in Dublin. So there was obviously Mike Tyson has also been seen the wrong side of the law as well. So they were partying away in Dublin. So I suppose he's getting on with his life.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Eimear.
Thanks, Niall.